Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week, it's time for some more PSGL. Today we arrive at Singapore for round 12 of the F9 Championship, and we're getting right into the deep end of qualifying, and it looks like we are going to ride on board with LFR Indigo, who is going to set the first lap of the session, but it actually looks like he's backed out of his lap time. So, yeah, it looks like he has actually invalidated that lap. So it looks like CPI Wagner is going to be the first person to set a lap so long as he doesn't invalidate his time. So we're going to ride on board for this entire lap time. And let's see how fast he can go on his first banker time of the session in his Alpine. And in the middle sector now, looks like a little bit of mistake there coming out of that left-hander. But into this very tricky section here with a lot of very tight corners that take some good reactions to get used to, and then coming into this hairpin and onto the DRS straight with the DRS wide open now, and coming out of the middle sector now, obviously a purple sector 2, he's the first person to set a sector 2 time, a little bit of a lockup into that heavy braking zone of the right-hander, another lockup into there, takes that left-hander very nicely, taking a lot of curb going into that turn, hitting all of his apexes so far, so this should hopefully be a decent lap time. Probably didn't take as much curb on those two turns as he might have wanted to, but we're now into the final turn, and what kind of time is it going to be? It's going to be a 1:36.7, and that is going to be the time to beat for the rest of the grid, and we'll see what they can do up against that time. Looks like Wagner's teammate Joshua is currently on a lap. Looks like he's actually invalidated it though, and it looks like he will be going, he won't be going for another lap time. It looks like the Aston Martin also invalidated his lap time, so it looks like a couple people struggling with the track limits as he invalidates again at turn 2 there, a little bit of wheel spin as well. It looks like one of the Ferraris is coming across the line. Looks like Imperi came across the line, another person who invalidated their lap time. So it looks like King is currently on a lap on the medium compound of tires. Looks like he's the only person that's gone with that strategy. A little bit of a slide out of there, but he has actually set the provisional pole time on the medium compound of tires with a 36.6 in that Alfa Romeo, 1/10 quicker than CPI Wagner's 36.7 on those soft compound of tires. So that was a very good lap there from King to get provisional pole so far, but a lot of people have set a lap time, but it's sadly being invalidated. All those people on your screen that don't have a lap and that have one lap old soft compound tires, that means they've set a lap time, but it wasn't validated. So you can see there we have Joshua hasn't validated his lap time. He's invalidated again. So did JPE, Imperi, Janu, Liam Craig, Indigo, and West Ice all validating their first lap times. Looks like Spirit though on the soft compound tires. It looks like Wagner might have made a mistake in a couple of corners, although it looked like a pretty decent middle and third sector. Maybe it was in the first sector where he lost a lot of time because Spirit has just gone 1.3 seconds faster than Wagner, which puts King at 1.2 seconds behind on those medium compound tires, but to be expected as the delta is around 9/10 on the medium compound of tires. So they're definitely a lot slower than the softs, and it's very difficult to get through. Well, technically this is short qualifying, so it's just as fast as you can go on the mediums, and usually it's going to put you outside the top 10, maybe at the bottom of the top 10 if you go fast enough. But it looks like LFR Indigo has actually invalidated 2 lap times in a row, and he's going for another one. And it looks like Liam Craig has actually been disqualified from the session for blocking in the pit lane, so that must have been an accident there. It looks like he's lost his entire front wing, and I'm really not sure what's happened there. Maybe he was a bit slow going into the pit lane, and the game thought that he was actually trying to block other people from getting in, but he is now disqualified from the session, and his chances for pole are all over, and he didn't even get a set of lap times. So that's a shame to see because as we've seen in the Netherlands, as I've only commentated on last 2 rounds, in the Netherlands he was a very, very quick driver, or possibly could have been. He broke so much at the 60-meter board there, showing you the speed limit for the pit lane. Maybe he thought that was the entry, but it is the white line after that. Really confused on what happened there, but it's a shame to see. So we now have 10 minutes to go in the session, and only 4 people out of 14, well now 13, have actually set a lap time. So it looks like people really struggling with the track limits here, and we're going to try and find someone who is currently on a lap. It looks like Clark is on a lap, and he actually sets a purple sector 1, so signs of things to come on his very first, hopefully valid lap time here in the Red Bull on the soft tires, missing the apex just slightly there, but coming into the middle sector, and a very tricky set of turns to negotiate. Looked like a little bit of a slide out of that left-hander, and another little bit of a slide there. Looks like struggling with the traction and possibly grip as well. Now coming down the DRS straight in this middle sector, he's going to end off this middle sector. It is a purple sector too, so he is going quite fast. Misses that apex though, but actually manages to carry a lot of speed, and coming into that exit gets a very nice exit out there. It doesn't take as much curb as he might have wanted to in that left-hander, hitting this apex, and now missing the right-hander apex on the side there. Looks like struggling a bit with understeer possibly, as missing a couple of these apexes, or maybe it's the fastest way to take a lap time, because he does set a 35.5, which is just a 1/10 off of Spirit's provisional pole time. But there's only 2 drivers that have set competitive lap times in the 35s. I'm assuming that everyone else has made a mistake, apart from King, who was on those medium compound of tires. And we're just looking up and down the grid. It looks like another person has opted for the mediums. That's Janu, who's just come out of the pit lane, I think, or maybe made a mistake into the first 2 turns. Soso is currently on a soft tire lap, and in the middle sector, and this is going to be his first lap of the session with just under 8 minutes to go. So these drivers really leaving it to the end of the session. The DRS is now wide open coming into this middle sector, and he does get a purple middle sector, but I think that might be a glitch, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Clark set a 103 something as his middle sector, where Soso set a 104. So I think that's definitely a glitch, where the game tells you set a purple sector when in reality you haven't hit that apex on the right hand side. A little bit of a lockup going into there. It takes quite a bit of curb going into there, but it looked like a bit of a slow exit, carrying a bit too much speed maybe. And across the line is going to be a 137.2, so not the best of laps. Puts him P6 in the session, and a lot of people still have better lap times to set. Wagner is currently in the 3rd sector, and about to finish his lap time, and let's see what kind of lap time he can set. His last lap time was a 36.7, but I think he might have made a mistake on that lap. Coming across the line again, it's going to be a 135.2, and that is a lot faster, and exactly what Wagner wants to see up on that timing board. Elifar Indigo has just started his lap time, a little bit of a slide coming out of the 1st sector, and now onto this DRS straight, and coming into the middle sector. Doesn't set a purple sector 1, but like I said, the game might be glitched with all those purple sectors. And now into the middle sector, into this next left-hander. It looks like just about hitting that apex there, so it looks like you don't really want to be taking too much curb into that turn. Same with that turn maybe, or I'm not sure if he's missed the apex. Takes that next right-hander very nicely though, gets up on that curb on the left-hand side and gives him a bit of a slide, and really using the track limits here, and getting nice and close to the barrier on the exit of that hairpin to give himself the best exit, as it looks like we saw a blink of a purple 2nd sector there, but I'm not sure if that's right or not. And we're now into the 3rd sector. Quite a bit of a lockup into there, but it looks like he managed to get the car rotated and maybe sacrificing a bit of speed carried into that corner. But we're now entering the final few turns. Oh, and it looks like he's actually just taken a little bit too much curb there, and that is going to invalidate his second time in the session. We only have 5 minutes to go, and Elfar Indigo has not set a lap time, and the same can be said for Imperi and West Ice, but West Ice is currently on a lap time. Looks like a little bit of wheel spin coming out of that hairpin. Sets a 103.295 in the middle sector, whereas I think Indigo set a 102.8 or 102.4. So we'll have to see what this lap time ends up as it looks like Janu and Joshua are currently in the top 6 with the medium compound of tyres. Looks like both dipping into the 35s. So impressive times on those medium compound of tyres, and we'll have to see if the mediums are the preferred tyres to start on. If anyone commits that strategy. Looks like West Ice comes across the line to set a 135.7, which puts some P4 in that Alfa Romeo, and a pretty decent time, you'd have to say, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that one. Joshua on the medium compounded tyres currently in P7, along with Janu currently in P6, both on their in laps, and looks like a couple of people are currently on their out lap. It looks like King is going to be setting his first time on the soft tyres. So is trying to go out on the mediums here after setting a 137.2 on the softs, which is definitely not the fastest time compared to the provisional pull time, 2 seconds off of the pace. Indigo now has invalidated both of his soft tyre laps, and is just saying, you know what, I'm going to go out on the medium compound of tyres and see where I can qualify. And he'll have to hope that he doesn't invalidate his final lap time of the session, because the last thing he wants to do is start on the back row of the grid with Liam Craig, who has been disqualified from the session. And looks like Imperi now just finishes his out lap and is going to be starting his first lap of the session, since the rest have all been invalidated. Going through the first sector here, looks pretty decent, but it looks like quite a bit of wheel spin coming out of turn 3 there, and that is going to cost him quite a bit of time coming out of those first few turns. Now onto DRS straight, and coming out of the first sector and into the middle sector. Looks like just misses that apex there, and as you can see, he barely even extended the track limits, and that has invalidated his time. So you can see the slightest mistake can cost you your entire lap time. Looks like Spirit is actually on a lap time, and as we ride on board, he actually invalidates straight away going into that right-hander. Anyone else on a lap? King on his first medium compound tire laps. It looks like, or not mediums, soft compound tire lap. It looks like he is currently 6/10 up on his time, which would give him a 36th lap. He still has 2/3 of the lap to go, so we'll see how much faster he can go in this middle sector and the final sector of the lap, hitting that apex of the left-hander, cutting this right-hander as much as possible, opting to take that curb, but trying to get on the inside as much as possible of that left-hander. A very nice sign coming out of that hairpin, using 4th gear for the exit instead of 3rd to minimize wheel spin. 1.1 seconds up on his time, and this could be quite a nice lap time here from King. He's still got one more sector to go, really cutting these 2 turns, extending the track limits to the absolute maximum here to gain as much lap time as possible. Slightly misses the apex coming into the tunnel of that left-hander, but now into the final few turns. And what kind of lap time is it going to be from King? So it looks like a pretty good lap time so far. Across the line, it's going to be a 134.9. He is going to be the first driver to dip some headset issues there. As I was saying, King is going to be the first driver to dip into the 34s with a 34.9. That's a great time from him. and is going to put him on provisional pole. LFR Indigo just finishes his medium lap and is going to be the fastest medium runner with a lap time of a 35.5, just 6/10 off of the provisional pole time. That's a great lap from LFR Indigo. I'm sure he'll be really happy with that, and he's going to have to stick with that lap time, so we'll have to see where that puts him in the end, and he will be starting on the medium compound of tyres. We'll have to see how that all plays out. Wagner currently on the provisional front row with a 35.2, 3/10 off of the provisional pole time. This is going to be his final time of the session, and he's really left it late, just the qualifying session just ending as he negotiates turn 3 there, and now coming into turn 4. Looked like a tiny bit of a lock-up there into turn 4, and now to end off sector 1 with turn 5, and coming into the middle sector now. It looks like he's under a 10th up on his time, so he's not too much up on his time, but maybe all the time is going to be gained in the middle and third sector. But looked like a bit of a lock-up coming into that last right-hander, and just takes a bit too much curb there on that left-hander, and it looks like he's going to abandon this lap time. So Wagner is going to finish the session with a 35.2. King comes into pit lane with a 34.9, and that could secure him pole position, but it does look like Clark in that Red Bull is currently on a lap time. We'll have to see how fast he can go, really using as much curb as possible there on that left-hander, hitting this apex coming into the tunnel, and the apex coming out of the tunnel, now coming into the final few turns of the final sector, and looked like a really nice left-hander there with a great exit from Clark. What kind of time is it going to be across the line? It's a 34.9, but it's just 2/100 shy of King's 34.975, and that was really close to being a pole position lap, but it looks like King is just about going to edge him out by 2/100ths. That was a really good lap from King there, and that is going to give him pole position for today's Singapore Grand Prix, with Clark with that very late lap time getting him onto that front row just 2/100ths off of King's time. That was a really close qualifying session, and LFR Indigo starting P5, if I'm not mistaken, on the medium compound of tyres, and that is going to put him on an interesting strategy. He's going to be the lead medium runner. CPI Wagner obviously made a mistake on his final lap and actually backed out of it, so he didn't get to set a lap time at the end of the session. TRD Spirit set a 35.4. That puts him on the second row of the grid. Indigo on the mediums is going to be starting on the third row of the grid alongside West Ice. JPE starting alongside Janu on the mediums. Joshua also on the mediums starting alongside Stiggy, and Lever, So in Perry not getting a lap time in, and Liam being disqualified from the session for blocking the pit lane entry. They are all going to have the free choice of tyre, and we'll have to see what the preferred strategy is going to be. Is starting on the mediums going to be advantageous for people like Joshua, Janu, and also Indigo starting P5 in this race? Or is it actually going to be better to start on the softs? We'll have to see, as tyre deck is quite high around this track of Singapore with such humid temperatures. The tyres really degrading around this track, and also with it being a street circuit with so many turns and not too many straights, most drivers running 11 wings, which just increases the tire deck even further. So the tires will be wearing out quite quickly, and we might see the softs run out in just 6 laps. But we'll have to see how it all plays out, as the drivers are lining up on the grid to start their formation lap before the race begins. So we ride, and it looks like King on pole position alongside Clark. Just 2/100 separates them in the qualifying session, and the Alfa Romeo will be starting on pole position for today's Grand Prix, and we'll have to see if he can get a good start from the position he's in and hold off Clark coming into turn 1. He's going to want a good start because track position is everything around here at Singapore, since it's so hard to overtake. Even though this track has three DRS zones, it's still really hard to overtake around this track, with the DRS zones being relatively short, and the rest of the track being very low speed to medium speed corners, and a very tight and twisty track makes it extremely difficult to overtake. So that's why King has probably put himself in the best position in this race, with Elefar Indigo also in a decent position on those medium compound tyres. He's going to be able to overcut the rest of the grid, stay out a lot longer in the clean air, and that could possibly gain him a bit of time on the soft compound tyre runners, who are all going to have to be in each other's dirty air once they box for new tyres, and that could really gain anyone on the medium compound tyres a lot of time through the pit stops. So obviously Indigo, Joshua and Janu all starting on the mediums. It looks like Levy is starting on the mediums as well. It looks like Soso and Imperi have opted for the hard compound of tyres, so I assume they're going to be using the two harder compound of tyres, going for a hard medium strategy. We'll have to see how that plays out. And Liam starting on the medium compound of tyres. So I think, once again, really not sure on the strategy here. As with most tracks, I think a lot of the drivers will be trying to stretch the softs and mediums to try and make it a one-stop on the two softer compound of tyres. But obviously Soso and Imperi will be going for the hard medium strategy, and also safety cars could really change up the strategy and possibly help the soft tyre runners, or a late safety car could really hurt the soft tyre runners races and really help out anyone on the alternate strategy. But we'll have to see how it all plays out, as we now have 4 red lights, 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for a pole position man? We'll have to see. Looks like a good start there from Indigo, and a great start from Clark. Indigo trying to move himself up into P3, and it looks like a spin there for the Williams, and that is going to lose him a lot of time in positions. Clark able to get P1 off at the start. Indigo moving himself up into P3 on those medium compound of tyres, and now getting very close to the back of King. And could he be looking for a move down the inside? He has a look, but he can't commit to that move. Clark, really good start getting up into P1 in that Red Bull on those soft compound tyres. Wagner losing a position, going down to P4. JPE moving up to P5 with Janu in P6. And sadly, the Williams of TRD Spirit losing so many positions and so much time after that spin. I think they went 3 wide into turn 1. Indigo got the better exit off of turn 1, which left Wagner and Spirit 2 wide going into turn 2, and that was where the contact was made, and why Spirit has lost so much time and is now down in P12 with his teammate right behind him on the alternate strategy. So Clark currently leads this Grand Prix with King in second place, sadly losing P1 off of the start. Indigo has moved himself up into P3 on these medium compound of tyres, and probably put himself in one of the best positions possible. And Wagner is going to be right behind him. JPE moving up quite a few positions to get himself up into P5, moving up 2 positions, started P7 in this race. Janu started right behind him in P8 and has moved himself up into P6. Liam trying to make some moves, as you can see here, making a move into turn 1, trying to gain back some time and positions on the top few drivers. And let's see if he can continue this pace. He's already moved up 4 positions in this Grand Prix. It looks like Imperi has actually had to come into the pit lane for a front wing change. Is going to be going on to the medium compound of tyres, and is going to get a new front wing, but it looks like he's actually decided to retire from the session. That's a shame to see. He's out on lap 1. Clark still leads the Grand Prix with King right behind him. DRS will be enabled next lap and will be able to be utilized. and that could lose Clark a lot of time. But I think he will still be able to maintain the lead as the DRS straights are not too long and can be defended. And with so many braking zones, they're able to recharge a lot of their ERS. Liam moving up into P9 actually sets a purple sector 2, so he's really flying on these medium tyres and trying to move up the grid as quickly as possible. Now trying to catch up to the top 8, who are all going to be in a DRS strain on lap 3 once the DRS is enabled. Looks like Janu on those medium compound tyres, the second medium runner in this race, with Indigo obviously putting himself in a great position in P3. Clark sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix so far on lap 2 of a 41 point some, but it looks like Liam is obviously going a lot faster and set a 40.5. If I'm not mistaken, DRS has now been enabled. Could we see a bit of an attack here from King going into this DRS zone? He's going to be under a bit of pressure from Indigo behind, but obviously with those medium tyres, it's going to be a lot harder to push. It looks like Clark defending the middle of the track there and really giving King nowhere to go. But it looked like a little bit of a late weaving there from Clark, a little bit of a aggressive defence, and King is going to have to keep that in mind for the next DRS straight, and he has Indigo right behind him, who might be willing to use up a bit of his battery power to try and overtake King and move himself up into P2. As you saw there, didn't use that curb on the left hand side like he did in the qualifying, and that is because it's a lot easier to spin your car in the race when the fuel loads are a lot heavier. And as you can see there, coming into that DRS zone, he really did not gain that much time, about a tenth or two, with Indigo being really close behind now. But as you saw on that DRS zone, out of the hairpin, really didn't gain a lot of time, only about 2/10 since the straight is not that long. And I think the main overtaking zone might be coming into the middle sector after the second DRS straight, but we'll have to see if that continues. King is just 2/10 behind now and has a DRS, but it looks like Janu has overtaken Wagner, and that's because he's come into the pit lane on lap 4, so it might be a two-stop strategy here around Singapore as Wagner now comes into the pit lane for the medium compound of tyres, and obviously those softs were not working for him, and it looks like Clark has actually dropped down to P3 there. That might have been a mistake from him. As you can see, his car is ghosted, so it must have been a mistake from Clark there, and that's allowed King to get into the lead. He does have the DRS, so I think Clark was just pushing a little bit too hard and might have made a mistake coming out of turn 3, possibly turn 4, but that has now cost him the lead of this Grand Prix and is down into P4. Wagner is going to be one to watch in this race on that, a very aggressive undercut, and I assume he's going to be on the two-stop strategy, stretching the mediums for 27 laps around Singapore. Probably wouldn't be the best strategy, so it might be a soft medium race. As you can see there, Indigo getting so close to the back of King. Now he is going to have the advantage of the DRS on this DRS straight. He's able to overtake King coming out of that DRS straight into the final sector, and Indigo on the medium compound of tyres is now up into P1 in that Haas car after only setting one lap time in qualifying, being on the medium compound of tyres, and he's really put himself in a great position in this Grand Prix. It looks like Clark is actually losing a lot of time and positions. He could have possibly broken his front wing, and that's exactly what's happened. He must have hit a wall coming out of turn 3 because he has lost his left end plate, and is going to have to come into the pit lane to get that repaired. JPE also coming into the pit lane for what I assume is medium compound of tyres, but he could have also broken his front wing, but as you can see, his pit crew has not prepared a new front wing for him, so he is just going for a bit of an undercut compared to the rest of the grid. Where does Wagner come out compared to JPE? This is going to be the first sign to see, is this undercut working so far. He's hit a purple sector 3, and it looks like he might be on for a fast lap next lap, as Stiggy actually steals the fast lap of a 140.1. JPE comes out of the pit lane side by side with Stiggy there, and it looks like Stiggy is able to get that move done, and setting that fast lap. He's really been pushing hard, and that gets him out ahead of JPE. So it looks like the gap between Wagner and JPE is 5 seconds, and JPE was around the top 5, top 6. Not 100% sure where he was, but he was not too far behind Wagner. They were all in the same DRS straight, but Wagner is now 5 seconds ahead of JPE, and we'll have to see if that undercut works on the rest of the grid. It looks like Janu and King going side by side into the final sector, and Janu gets the move done. It looks like the soft tires are really degrading heavily here, because the two medium runners are now in the lead of the Grand Prix, and Indigo had broken the DRS to King. So Indigo running a really strong race here, currently in P1 on the medium compound of tires, and has broken the DRS to P2, which was King, but it's now Janu on the medium tires as well. King, does he come into pit lane? It looks like King is going to extend this soft compound tire stint, and we'll have to see if he goes for a one stop in this race, because every single other soft compound tire runner has now come into the pit lane, and the last of which was West Ice, his teammate. Just came into the pit lane there for a fresh set of hard compound tires. So it looks like West Ice is going for that one stop. CPI Wagner on that aggressive undercut has just at a 139.4, which is only 5 seconds. Well, I say only, but 5 seconds off of the pull time. Looks like Liam actually overtook Joshua there coming into the middle sector, but he did do it off the track, so he conceded the position, as I think he might have gone down the inside and pushed Joshua wide. So good sportsmanship there from Liam, and is currently P5 in this race after starting at the very back of the grid in P14 after being disqualified in qualifying, and is now going to be looking for a move on Joshua, who will have the DRS on the straight. But like I said before, this straight is not too long, so you have to be really close off the exit of the hairpin, and obviously he's not close enough, so he's not going to be looking for a move coming into turn 3. And so Joshua is going to maintain P4 for now, but he's going to be under quite a bit of pressure from Liam. King currently 1.5 seconds off of Janu, so he's lost about 6 tenths on that last lap. So you can see the delta between the softs and the mediums is quite big. And what kind of tires is King going to box for here? It's going to be interesting. Is he going to opt for the mediums, or is he going to try and go for the one stop in this race and go for the hard compound of tires? I think it is a two stop around here. As you can see, comes into pit lane for medium, so I assume it's going to be a soft medium, and for anyone who started on the mediums, could be a medium soft. We'll have to see what kind of strategy they choose. Liam is now on the back of Joshua and is going to be making the move coming into the middle sector. Joshua not able to do much without that power of the DRS, and Liam is now up into the podium positions. Indigo in the lead of the Grand Prix after breaking the DRS to P2. It looks like King has actually struggled coming out of the pit lane there. It was a yellow flag, and I think he made a mistake. He's lost his entire front wing. So King, after coming out of the pit lane, maybe it got a bit too early on the power, and as you have to turn left straight after you come out of the pit lane, might have gotten a bit too much wheel spin and hit the wall on the left hand side. So this is taking King out of contention for the win in this race, unless there is a safety car, and that is a shame to see. He's going to have to limp back to the pit lane to get a new front wing, and possibly go into hard compound tires to go to the end of the race. As you can see there, it looked like he had a front wing from this helicopter cam, but he in fact has no front wing. So that's a shame to see, out of contention for the race win now. Just letting Clark, another person who was looking strong for a race win, down right ahead of his rival in P12 on the hard compound tires. So the two drivers that started on the front row really struggling in this race, and could be finishing last in this Grand Prix, being 12 seconds off of the closest car, being King's teammate West Ice. So it looks like it's going to be a whole new dynamic for the win in this Grand Prix. So it looks like Indigo might be the net leader, but you do have to watch out for CPI Wagner, who went for that aggressive undercut and is 22 seconds off of Indigo. So it looks like Indigo has really good pace, even on those worn medium tires. It looks like Janu actually made a mistake coming into the middle sector and out of the very sharp right-hander, I think it was. But yeah, I think Indigo has a really good chance of this race, with Wagner being 22 seconds behind, and the next closest rival being Janu. We have a yellow flag in the middle sector. It looks like that's for Stiggy, who currently has a fast half of the Grand Prix. It looks like he made a mistake coming into the middle sector, and does he have a damaged front wing? So it looks like his tires are overheated after the spin, and he spins again coming off of that left-hander, and that has lost him a lot of time, and it's now going to put him right ahead. He's actually going to let Clark through there. So another driver who's lost a lot of time. It actually looks like his tires were really overheated there, and he's hit straight into the wall, and his car is very close to the racing line, and so the safety car has been deployed, and Indigo and Janu have both just gone past the pit lane, and this gives a chance for Liam and Joshua to come in, but it looks like Indigo has just about gotten out ahead of the safety car, and Janu is allowed to overtake the safety car now. So if the safety car had came out a second earlier, it would have meant that Indigo would have had to wait behind the safety car, and that would have lost him so much time to Liam and Joshua. And I'm not sure if this is good or not for Wagner, because everyone behind him is now going onto hards, which will take him to the end of the Grand Prix, and they've gained a free pit stop. Liam and Joshua both on the hard compound tires going to the end of the race. Wagner on the mediums. I assume he's going for the 2-stop, but we'll have to see how this safety car affects his strategy. I'm sure that Indigo and Janu will both be coming into the pit lane at the end of this lap. And has King actually been lapped? Because he has not been lapped. So this has brought King, Clark, and not Stiggy, because he is the reason the safety car is out. So this has brought King and Clark back into the battle in this race. They're both on the hard compound tires, which I assume they'll take to the end of the Grand Prix, and they're going to be battling at the back of the grid and try and make their way up the grid, just like Liam has done, getting himself up into P4, and King, and yeah, like I said, King and Clark are going to be getting back into the battle. And if we actually look at penalties here, there's only been 2 people to get a penalty. JPE and Levi both having 3 seconds of time penalties. So it looks like a lot of people struggled with the track limits in the qualifying, but a lot of people have started, I assume, have gotten it under control now in the race when they're going quite a bit slower with such heavy fuel loads. Janu and Indigo both come into the pit lane for the hard compounded tires, which they will be taking to the end of the Grand Prix, and yeah, they're going to be 1 and 2 in this race, and battling it out for the win in the Singapore Grand Prix. But it looks like Wagner is getting very close to the back of them, really pushing hard to try and get out ahead, and it looks like he might have jumped Janu here as he gets out right behind Indigo. And yes, Wagner has moved himself up into P2, but he's now a pit stop down on these front running cars, and we'll have to see if he's made the right strategy, because he could have come in for the hard compound of tires and been in P6 in this race, but I guess he's heavily relying on his pace and the fact that he will be faster than these hard compound tire runners once he goes on to what I assume will be fresh mediums towards the end of the Grand Prix. We'll have to see how that works out. Janu trying to burn some fuel in this Grand Prix, and we're now going to have a quick look up and down the grid to see where everyone's at strategy wise and position wise, penalty wise, and see what's going on, and just take a bit of a breather here under the safety car after a very eventful Singapore Grand Prix so far, at a track that's so hard to overtake. We've had Liam make so many overtakes, get himself from the back of the grid up into P14. We've had 2 DNFs, our first safety car of the Grand Prix. Janu and Indigo battling it out for the win in this Grand Prix. King and Clark making big mistakes that have cost them heavily. And as you can see there, King on the minimap is only in the first sector, whereas the safety car has just gotten into the third sector. So really far behind, and really needs to catch up quite quickly, because I think the safety car will be coming in at the end of lap 11, if I had to guess. So let's have a quick look up and down the grid. We currently have LFR Indigo leading this Grand Prix in that formidable Haas car, currently on the hard compound of tyres, which will be taking him to the end of the Grand Prix. So he does not have any pit stops to make. The same cannot be said for Wagner in the Alpine, who will have to box again in this Grand Prix, but he won't be going to hards. He'll be going to the medium compound of tyres later on in this Grand Prix towards the end. And his job will be to try and chase down the leaders in this Grand Prix, and we'll have to see if it can be done, because he is going to have to push quite hard and really find some pace to catch up to these guys. I think a pit stop loses you about 22 seconds around here in Singapore, and that's quite a bit of time to be lost. So you have to push really hard if you're going for that 2-stop. Janu in P3, after starting P8, is now going to be battling it out with LFR Indigo and Wagner for the win in this Grand Prix. So it's been a really good race so far from Janu here, moving himself up into the podium positions, and was in P2 at one stage, but since Wagner opted to stay out, he will be in P3 for now. And as you can see, trying to burn some fuel there so that his car isn't too heavy at the end of the safety car. Obviously, rich fuel mix has been lost in this new game, so you cannot burn fuel as easily. You can only use standard, and you can only use lean under these safety car conditions. So if you did underfuel the car, you can gain some of that fuel back. Liam, who's moved himself all the way from P14, another driver who started towards the back and has made his way up to the front of the grid, is currently P4 after starting P14. Joshua has moved himself up into P5. I think he started behind Janu, if I'm not mistaken. And the safety car is now in at the end of lap 11, like I predicted, and we will be under green flag running soon enough. JPE, currently P6, has another stop to make in this race. West Dyson P7 and a net P5 after Wagner and JPE box. So has to pit as well on this medium compound of tyres. Levy with the 3-second time penalty in P9. Clark and King are both back in this race, and we'll have to see what they can do with this opportunity of this safety car, and can they move themselves up the grid. And Clark has 5-lap-old hard compound tyres, so he might be struggling for wear towards the end of the Grand Prix. We'll have to see how it all plays out. We're going to ride on board with Indigo for this safety car restart, and what kind of restart is he going to get compared to Wagner. And looks like he's going here towards the end of the third sector, now coming into the final turn. And it looks like a decent restart for Indigo there, gaining 0.6 on Wagner. And Janu quite close behind Wagner. Although it does say 0.9, I think he's quite a bit closer, as you can see, almost pushing him through the corners there. And yeah, 0.2. So it looks like Wagner has lost DRS to Indigo already. So was the strategy of staying out on the medium compound of tyres the right choice, as he's now broken back into the DRS, which will be enabled on lap 14, and that's when they will have the DRS, and they'll get their first dose of DRS after the safety car restart on the second DRS straight. But Indigo already starting to pull away. He's got some great pace in this race, even on the hard compound of tyres. Liam in P4. It looks like JPE on those mediums has lost DRS to the hard compound tyre runners, so it looks like the hards are actually faster at this stage of the Grand Prix compared to 6-lap and 7-lap old mediums. And it looks like Wagner might have made a very bad strategy call here. He thought the mediums were faster, but it does look like they are slower. And he's now lost the DRS once again to Indigo ahead of him. And it's going to be under quite a bit of pressure from Janu once the DRS is enabled. So yeah, it definitely does not look like Wagner is on the right strategy here. And he's really going to have to hope for another safety car to bring him back into the fight for the lead. Otherwise, I think he will be ending up quite far down the grid. As it looked like Levi actually made a mistake on the safety car restart, and so did Clark. So Clark had a chance of getting back into the battle for any kind of points in this Grand Prix, but he's thrown it away on the safety car restart. So both of the Red Bulls are now going to be at the back of the grid, and as you can see, he comes into pit lane there for what I assume is going to be a new front wing, and that is a shame to see. King still in this race though, although he is at the very back of this DRS train. Spirit getting very close to the back of West Ice there, and going very close there into the middle sector. It looks like he actually gets a warning for extending the track limits, and that is going to give him a 3-second time penalty in this Grand Prix, and that is going to lose him quite a few positions in this race after having going very close side by side there with West Ice, but leaving a lot of space, and possibly too much space, as he obviously had to take that warning. And I've just heard from Clark that Soso and him make contact on the safety car restart, and that is how he lost his front wing, and that is why he is in P12 behind his teammate, both of the Red Bulls, outside of the points with just 12 runners in this race. It looks like Wagner is currently 1.1 seconds off Velopar Indigo. It looks like quite a bit of a slide there coming out of the tunnel. That has allowed Janu to catch up quite a bit, and the DRS is going to be enabled on this lap, so it's not the greatest place to make a mistake. And it looks like Wagner actually gets a 3-second time penalty now for going quite wide off of the exit of the final turn, and once again going to lose him quite a few positions, but he will be a pit stop down on these guys once he finally boxes for fresh mediums, I assume at least. But now Janu is just 3/10 behind and will have the DRS for this straight. And what can he do up against Wagner? Is he going to go to the outside? Looks like Wagner's red light is flashing, and Janu is going to try and go around the outside, but Wagner leaves him absolutely no room on the outside there, completely pushes him wide, and that is going to allow Wagner to maintain P2, but that might have to be looked into by the stewards. As you can see there, Wagner's red light is flashing. He's under 10% ERS and trying to harvest some of his energy back, as he's been using a lot of it to try and stay in the DRS of Indigo, but after going side by side with Janu, that's lost him 3 seconds or 2 seconds to Indigo. Behind the gap is now 3 seconds. Janu had DRS on that straight just gone by, but wasn't able to get close enough to Wagner, to the back of Wagner there, and he's getting quite close to the back of him. He's really trying to make a move on Wagner, but I'm sure he's definitely going to be cautious after seeing what happened coming into that middle sector, and he's going to know that maybe the inside line will be the preferred line for him, but it looks like quite a big slide there as Wagner actually decides to box now on lap 15, and we'll be going to the end of the Grand Prix on whatever tyre he chooses, but he actually gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, now up to 8 seconds. A time penalty. It looks like quite a big slide there from Janu. This is now going to get Liam quite close to the back of Janu, and will he be looking for a move into this next DRS straight? We'll have to see. The DRS is now wide open of this Mercedes car, and it looks like he is going to have the inside line for this next turn, which will then turn to the outside, but he's got the move done before the braking zone, and moves himself all the way up from P14 at the start of the race to P2 in the back of the grid, or in on lap 15 of this Grand Prix. Clark actually sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix after boxing for the fresh medium compound of tyres, and I'm sure he's going to be happy to see that. And if he can get into the top 10, which he's 7 seconds off of, as his teammate has had enough. He's gone into the pit lane and retired from the session. That's one Red Bull down. But Clark has the fastest lap, and we'll have to see if he can catch up to Wagner. They've got the same amount of wear on their tyres, but Wagner is now 25 seconds behind King, which is the closest car to him. So I think he's definitely messed up the strategy there, and I don't think that was the right call, staying out on those medium tyres, because he's now pit stop down on the rest of the grid, and yeah, he's not going to have enough pace to catch up at 25 seconds. At least that's what I assume. Janu, as you can see there, slightly cut the corner, and that is enough for a 3-second time penalty, and that's going to be very costly in this race, as he has Joshua and Spirit right behind him. The Spirit also has a 3-second time penalty, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he does. Joshua currently has no penalty, so Janu is in a net P4, and that is a shame to see, as I think he could have done really well without that 3-second time penalty. But he's going to have to live with it now and push on in this Grand Prix. It looks like Sozo making a move into the middle sector, and so does King on his teammate. But JPE tries to fight back here, tries to go down the inside, but a move into there is never going to work. There's just not enough space for two cars, and sadly beats this car there on the curb, but has managed to get it back and back on track, and is going to be P9 in this race and still has to box, and that might promote Clark up into P9 or P10 once JP boxes and just cut the corner there, and that is going to give him another 3-second time penalty in this Grand Prix, which brings him up to a total of 6 seconds. A shame to see, but that's what happens sometimes. He tried to fight back, he tried to get the position back, but I don't think that was worth it, and especially into turn like that. Moving back to the battle, well, not for the lead anymore, because Elifar Indigo has now broken a 5-second gap to Liam behind, and is pushing nice and hard. Well, technically he might just be in cruise control in this race, but he's got so much pace around here on these high compounded tires, and he's really just showing a dominant performance here around Singapore. And so long as there's no unexpected safety cars or spins or wing damage, I think Indigo might be securing the win here at Singapore. But there's still 14 laps to go. We only just crossed the halfway point 1 lap ago, so there's still plenty of the race to go, with Singapore being one of the longest races on the Formula 1 calendar, and that just shows that anything can happen, especially in a longer race like this. Liam currently holding on to P3, managing to keep Janu behind. It's been a couple of laps now, and Janu hasn't really fought back, even with the power of the DRS, but that might be because of the fact that he is saving up the ERS. As you can see, got about 85% ERS, and could be looking to push quite hard, and that might be his only option, to try and break DRS to Liam, and try and make a 3-second gap, because that 3-second time penalty is going to lose him quite a few positions, as Spirit, who's currently in P5, gets another 3-second time penalty, giving him a total of 6 seconds of time penalties, with Joshua, who's behind Janu, currently on no penalties. As you see, a bit of a side there for Janu, coming out of that last left-hander and into the final turn, and that definitely cost him a bit of time. But we're going to see now, Janu is 4 tenths behind, 5 tenths behind, quite close to the back of Liam ahead of him, and we'll have to see if he can possibly go for a move. Is he going to start pushing with the ERS anytime soon, as he actually hits the wall there? So really struggling with this track, I suppose, having quite a few slides and hitting the barriers on quite a few occasions, and he's currently just saving up his ERS and just waiting for the right time to start pushing and try to break a gap to Liam ahead, who does have 1 lap older hard compound tyres, and like I said, the tyre deck is quite high, so that could make quite a big difference, as Clark gets a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limits. As you can see there, Janu getting really close to that pillar on the right hand side. Really pushing hard here to try and gain as much time as possible on Liam. But it's going to be as soon as he starts using the ERS, that is going to be when he has to try and break a 3-second gap. But it looks like Indigo has lost a bit of his lead. He's lost about 4 tenths in his lead to Liam behind. And is this a sign that possibly Liam is starting to catch up now? Or did Indigo just make a small mistake? Because even a small mistake can cost you half a second in Formula 1. But it looks like the gap is now down to 4.6 seconds. So it might be the fact that Liam is starting to find some pace, as he almost broke the DRS to Janu there. He was able to gain a bit of that time back, as it looks like Liam gets a bit of a slide there coming out of turn 3. So does Janu with the wheel spin. He's quite close to the back of Liam now. Just 3 tenths in the gap. Is he going to start using his ERS? Yes is the answer. But no, he turns it off quite early. So he's looking for the right time. But now is clearly not the right time, even though he's really close to Liam there, and almost broke the DRS to Joshua, who's currently outside of a 1 second gap to Janu. Can they try and hold this gap to Joshua behind? That would definitely relieve a bit of pressure from Janu, since he's currently in the net P4 because of Joshua being within 3 seconds of Janu. And looked like a bit of a correction there from Joshua going through those tricky sequence of corners. But it looks like he's gotten himself well and truly back into the DRS, just 5 tenths behind Joshua. Spirit is actually 1.1 seconds off, but it looks like Indigo has made a big mistake coming off of the DRS straight into that right-hander, and is now just 7 tenths ahead of Liam, and he has lost his entire 5-second lead. And it looks like he's going to let Liam through, and he lets Janu through too, but it looks like he couldn't let Joshua through, and he's actually gone into the barrier there. Indigo was in a difficult position. He was trying to let people through because he's obviously got wing damage. He's trying to let people through, and he now needs to get into the pit lane, so he had to brake there because DRD Spirit had the inside line. But Indigo, like I said, he would have secured this race if it wasn't for a surprise safety car or any mistakes like wing damage or spins, and that's exactly what he's done. He's gotten himself wing damage and thrown away this race, as it looks like Wagner actually makes a mistake, and that's going to bring out the safety car. So this Wagner's mistake could not have happened at a better time for Indigos. As you can see, just got a bit too early on the power there, and hit into the wall on the exit of the tunnel there. So Indigo is still well and truly in this race, and King, who has had a difficult start to his race, I guess, is now in P5, but does have those 3 seconds of time penalties, which is going to lose him quite a few positions. But we'll have to see if anyone actually boxes now, because the mediums are now going to be able to go to the end of the Grand Prix, and Janu is in a really tough position now, because I think the safety guy has definitely not helped him out, because with that 3 second time penalty and the entire field bunching up, that's going to lose him even more positions than it did before. And Joshua sadly losing his entire front wing after trying to negotiate himself past Indigo, had to box for a new front wing, but this has actually helped out Joshua and Indigo quite a bit, as they're going to be able to catch up to the rest of the pack. And Indigo will be on the fresh medium compound of tyres, compared to the guys at him who are on 10 to 13 lap old hard and mediums. But I think Liam will be coming into the pit lane for the fresh mediums, and I think everyone else will be following him in, because it's definitely the better strategy. You don't want to be left out here with 10 lap old tyres, no matter what compound it is. So everyone comes into pit lane. Sadly, West Ice is going to have to double stack behind his teammate King, and as you can see, he tried to slow down a bit more there to possibly minimize the effects of the double stack. But as you can see here, his teammate getting those fresh mediums on, and he does have to stop for quite a bit, and his pit crew getting ready again with the new tyres, and he stops on a set of medium compound of tyres. Is that going to lose him the position to LFR Indigo. Where does Indigo actually come out? And as you can see, he's really pushing hard here, and he manages to come out in P4, so this has really minimized the damage for Indigo here. And even after having that big crash, he's still in P4 in this race, and Spirit up ahead has decided to stay out on the medium compound tires. Actually, I think he came in to the pit lane, but he did not have a fresh set of mediums. He only had worn mediums, which I assume he used towards the start of the Grand Prix. So he is on 5-lap old mediums, which is really going to hurt him in this race. Janu has opted for the soft compound of tires, which is going to be taking about a 10-lap distance. But as we've seen so far, any driver in the top 10 that started on the softs really struggled. Obviously, they had to do 2 to 3 laps in the qualifying on those tires, and then they did about 4 to 6 laps in the race. So this is doable, but the tires will not be good enough towards the end of the Grand Prix, and you'll start to lose a lot of time to Liam and Indigo. But if he can possibly pull out a gap on Liam quite early, that could really help him out, and maybe pull out a gap big enough to win this Grand Prix. He does have that 3-second time penalty, which is going to hurt him quite a bit, but Indigo probably shouldn't have any trouble overtaking Spirit, since Spirit does have worn tires. So Indigo, in all reality, has only lost 2 positions after losing his front wing and losing his 5-second lead, but he'll definitely be well and truly in the battle, still be in the battle for the win in this Grand Prix. And Wagner crashing could not have come at a better time for Indigo, and sadly Joshua getting caught up in Indigo's incident definitely cost him a lot of time, but this safety car is also going to help him out. The 2 Alfa Romeos have actually been stuck together for this entire race, apart from the start, obviously, with King starting from pole position, but losing quite a few positions after breaking his front wing on pit lane exit. And his teammates been behind him ever since, really. So these 2 Alfa Romeo drivers, currently P6 and P7, that'll be some decent points from them in the constructors, but we still have 9 laps to go once the safety car comes in, which I assume it'll come out in at the end of this lap, since everyone is now caught up to the back of the safety car. Let's just have a quick rundown through the grid. We have Liam currently leading the race on fresh medium tyres, with Janu right behind him with a 3-second time penalty and the fresh soft compound of tyres. And with the softs, Janu has been running on the hard tyres and the mediums for this entire race, and he's really trying to heat up the tyres there, and I think he was revving out the gears, and he has spun the car, and I hate to say it, but I've said this so many times this race, there's so many different drivers, but he might be out of contention for the win at Singapore, and that is a shame to see. As we saw before, he was trying to burn the fuel and really just make his car as light as possible, but obviously he was trying to heat the tires at the same time, which is not a good idea. The wheels spun, he lost control of the car, and thankfully I don't think he has any wing damage on his front wing. He has a little bit of a shark bite there on that right end plate, but that's only visible damage. It might not actually hurt his performance of his car. So he'll be at the back of the grid, and he's going to have to push quite hard on those soft tires, try and catch up to the rest. Spirit currently in P2, and this now promotes Indigo up into P3, and like I said, he shouldn't have the hardest time overtaking Spirit. And if he can overtake Spirit quite early on, it's just going to be a 1v1 between him and Liam for the win in this Grand Prix. So even after having to box for a new front wing, he's looking very good in this Grand Prix. We're now going to ride on board with Liam for this safety car restart. When is he going to go? He's going to try and make himself as the least bit predictable, and it looks like he's done that quite nicely. But Indigo getting a great restart here, and it looks like he's going to make this move on Spirit straight away down the inside into turn 1. Spirit's just going to let that position go coming into turn 1, and Indigo is now into P2. and it's going to be a 1v1 shootout for the win in this Grand Prix between the Mercedes of Liam and the Haas of Indigo. And it'd be really cool to see Liam win, starting from the back of the grid, currently in P1 and a great position in this Grand Prix. Spirit obviously in P3 and his teammate in P4, with King getting quite close to the back of Soso there. And it looks like Joshua tries to go down the inside, the same place where JPE lost control of his car, and that has actually compromised him because he's now lost the position to Clark. So it's definitely not a viable strategy to go down the inside into that turn, as we've seen two drivers really lose a lot of time and positions from going down the inside into there. It looks like Janu and JPE both made a mistake on the safety car restart, so it looks like the top 8 will all be battling it out for the win in this Grand Prix, so long as TDR Spirit can stay in the DRS of Indigo. It looks like Clark goes for a very late move there, very late braking, going into the middle sector and hit into the side of West Ice, and I think he just misjudged his braking point there. Hopefully West Ice does not have any wing damage from that incident, and once again I think the stewards will have to have a look into that one, as that was very late braking. I think he definitely just misjudged his braking zone. He pulled out of the slipstream as soon as he started to brake, obviously because West Ice broke a lot earlier than he expected. King now getting very close to the back of Soso there, and actually hitting him going into turn 2. Hopefully he doesn't have wing damage from that, as it looks like P3, 4, 5 and 6 all have penalties. So these guys are all battling for their positions as Shanu comes into playing to retire from the session. The DRS has now been broken to Spirit behind of Indigo, and has been for the last lap, but the DRS will be enabled next lap, so it doesn't matter as much now. But obviously Spirit with those worn tires really struggling to keep up with the top 2, but it looks like those top 2 will definitely just be battling it out by themselves for the win in this Grand Prix. We'll have to see how that all plays out, as the DRS will be enabled next lap on lap 25, and we're going to have a 7 lap shootout between the top 2 and the rest of the grid, with P3 almost now to P8 all being within each other's DRS. But it looks like Clark tries to go around the outside of King here, and looks like he's going to make that move stick. So really late braking, really committed there from Clark, and he was actually able to go around the outside into that turn. That's something you don't usually see, but it looks like he's actually let him through. So he might have gotten a legal overtake for going off the track. We weren't able to see from the camera angle we had if he went off track or not, but nevertheless he's let King through. His Indigo says the fast lap of the Grand Prix, a 1:38.2. That's a very fast lap to set in the race and on medium compound tires. And it looks like I'm really not sure why Clark let him through there. He must have overtaken him off the track. That's really the only explanation, because Clark had moved himself into a great position of P5, with P4 probably being the best position in this DRS train. You usually want to be second because the car ahead of you doesn't have the DRS, and you're able to defend from the car behind with the power of the DRS. So it tells us that Clark has just set a purple sector 1 as he gets very close to the back of King there, almost pushing him through the corner, as you can see, and really just trying to set himself up as nicely as possible for the next DRS train. And he thinks about going down the inside into his left-hander, but thinks better of that move, as it was never really going to happen going into there. But he's really just trying to offset King's line, and it looks like he's got a really nice exit coming out of the hairpin, and he's going to be able to get the move done on King, who gives them the big squeeze to the inside. They actually make contact there because of that squeeze, but as you can see, Clark has been using a lot of his ERS to get himself into this position, and is now under 10% ERS, but is in P5 in this race. As we look at the penalties, Spirit has 6 seconds of penalties, so it looks like Soso, Clark and King might be battling it out for the podium, but as long as Joshua can stay within 3 seconds of Soso, he will get a podium in this Grand Prix. So Joshua has set himself up really nicely in this race by getting no track limits, well, not no track limits warnings, but no track limit penalties whatsoever in this Grand Prix. It looks like Clark has got some great pace, as we saw in the qualifying, just missing out on pole position. He's got some great pace around this track. Sadly, hasn't been able to show it after breaking his front wing a few times. But getting very close to the back of Soso now, who has a look down the inside of Spirit, who breaks very early to let his teammate through. And this gives Nathan Clark, Clark a chance to go around the outside. It looks like he makes contact with the ball. King also making contact there. A lot of contact made. It looked like it was 3 wide going into that turn. And it looks like Clark has gotten out ahead, but has he got wing damage? And I think the answer is yes. Broke very early there, and that has really offset Spirit's braking line into Soso as well. And Joshua has now moved himself under P5. I don't know who has wing damage or not. We'll have to see at the end of this lap, but I think Spirit has got wing damage as he's now retired from the session. I don't know if he did that by himself or if he actually crashed into a wall there, but he's now out of the session. We're down to just 8 runners in this Grand Prix. Clark currently leading this DRS stream for P3 in this Grand Prix, and yeah, that was really confusing on what happened there. It looks like King makes a mistake in the middle, in the final sector, and that's lost him a lot of time, and has brought him out of the battle for a podium in this race. That's a shame to see, but let's see who comes into the pit lane now. It looks like no one's broken their front wing. It looks like Clark has broken his front wing, as you can see, missing his left end plate, and that is going to leave him very vulnerable. But he's obviously thought there's only 4 laps left in the Grand Prix. He may as well try and stretch this with this broken front wing. And it looks like Soso is trying to get a good run on Clark coming into turn 4 here, and it looks like he's done just that as Clark gets another 3-second time penalty. And with the power of the ERS and the DRS, Soso is going to go down the inside into that turn, with Joshua being right behind. Joshua, I think, is going to play this nice and safely as Clark goes wide there and actually lets those 2 drivers through. And yeah, I think what happened there is coming into the middle sector, Soso wanted to get the move done on his teammate, and obviously Spirit either wanted to let him through, or he just wanted to avoid any contact, so he broke early to try and avoid anything like that, but in doing so allowed Clark to go down the inside, as Soso actually broke really late, actually went off the track, locked up both of his front tires, and I think it was Soso and Clark who went side by side into that sharp right-hander with Spirit in the background. Clark being pushed into the wall. As we've seen drivers go side by side into there, there's usually not enough space. Clark got pushed into the wall, which lost him his front wing. That eventually led to a chain effect of I think it was King being hit almost into the wall, but thankfully surviving, but then making that mistake in the final sector. And it looks like West Ice is now going for a move on Joshua into turn 1, but it looks like Joshua is going to defend that position and maintain P4 in this race. But Joshua has just got a 3-second time penalty, and Soso is now running away with P3 in this race. He's now 4.6 seconds ahead of Joshua, and West Ice might be the only person that's going to be able to compete for that podium in this Grand Prix. But it looks like he's now trying to go around the outside of Joshua. It doesn't break late enough to do that. Joshua maintains P4, so it looks like Joshua maintains P4 there, but with that 3-second time penalty, it's going to put him in a net P5 in this Grand Prix. And as we're watching all this unfold, we just got 2 retirements from that incident. King and Spirit both retiring, and Clark losing his front wing, sadly down in P7 and last place. But even though he is last place, he will still get 6 championship points in this Grand Prix, if I'm not mistaken. So even though he's in last place, he will be getting 6 points, which is quite a decent takeaway from this Grand Prix. And JPE, who's been really struggling this race, will get 8. West Ice will get a current I can't do that here, 12. West Ice will get a current 12 since Joshua does have that 3-second time penalty. And it looks like Soso's really starting to pull away. Has Joshua got some sort of wing damage? And after that quick flyby of his car, I didn't get to see it, but it does not look like he has wing damage. It looks like he's just really struggling for pace compared to the cars around him, and this is going to allow West Ice to try and go around the outside into turn 2, and it looks like both of them left enough space, but it looks like Joshua might have understeered going into turn 2, and contact was made. It's very difficult to go side by side into there if you're not going very slowly and very cautiously, and Joshua, who's looking good for P5 in this race, is now going to be looking at a P6 or possibly even P7 result. So that's the second time he's lost his front wing this race. He's now going to have to come into pit lane. As you can see, he has no front wing there. And yeah, it looks like just 7 runners in this race, 2 of which have just lost their front wing and are going to be at the very back of this race. So technically, there's just 5 drivers left battling in this Grand Prix, one of which is in no man's land. The guy behind him, 8.5 seconds, and the car behind, 13.8. JP has 6 extra penalties, so there's no real point battling West Ice. And we are now left to the final battle on track for the win in this Grand Prix. It's going to be between Liam and Indigo. Indigo has just been hanging on in the DRS for the past couple of laps. But we're now on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix, and he's going to have to think about a move soon enough if he wants to win this Grand Prix. We've watched so much action in the midfield in this race, but all of that is over, and it is now just down to these two to put on a show for the final 2 laps of this Grand Prix. Let's see what they can do. Indigo using quite a bit of ERS. He's going to go to the outside, coming into the middle sector. Liam is able to hold that down the inside. I think Indigo might have backed out of that at the last second there. Inside line not really working going into that left-hander. And he's now in the slipstream, just 3/10 behind. Liam is going to be under serious pressure coming into the final lap, as there's still 3 DRS zones in the final lap, and still 1 more in this lap as well, as Clark actually sets the best lap of the Grand Prix of a 36.7, just almost 2 seconds off at the pole time. So that's a very quick lap for him to set in the race. But now it looks like Indigo gets a bit of a lock-up coming into the final sector, and it looks like he couldn't make a move coming out of that DRS zone, but it looks like this is going to be the final lap that he's going to be able to make a move. He's going to have 3 DRS zones to do so, and I assume the first one on the pit straight will be to try and catch up. The second one will be trying to overtake, and I think he's going to have to defend on the third one if he can make this move. But it looks like he is 4/10 behind Liam, and that was a big slide there coming out of the final turn. Very close to ending his race, but he's still quite close to the back of Liam. It looked like he actually cut that corner there. That might have been a warning, but he has not got a 3-second time penalty yet. The gap is now nearly 5/10 between the two of them coming onto this DRS straight. DRS is now wide open for Indigo, and is he going to be able to make the move on Liam, who is now under 10% ERS? It does not look like he's close enough coming into this left-hander. It looks like Liam makes a bit of a mistake. It looks like Indigo is going to try and go around the outside into this deathly turn and getting squeezed into the wall, but it looks like these two showing everyone else how it's done and how you go side by side into that turn. Still going side by side in this middle sector. Can Indigo try and make a move here? No, he cannot. Liam is going to maintain P1 for now. It looks like they made contact there, but still above him in this race. I don't think Indigo has the wing damage, and coming into his hairpin now and the final DRS straight, but it looks like Indigo got quite a bit of understeer coming out there. Has he got wing damage? Is this the race over for him? And is Liam able to go all the way from the back of the grid to the front of the grid to win this Grand Prix? There's still a few more corners to go, and Indigo is pushing as hard as he possibly can to try and catch up to Liam here. It looks like he makes a mistake and pushing a bit too hard there in the final sector. The move wasn't really on those final few corners. I don't think he would have been able to make that move. I think he could have just played it safe and gotten P2 in that race, but it looks like he is DNF'd from the session, getting a bit too early on the power, and that is a shame to see. He could have gotten P2 in that race, which would have really helped him in the championship. But we are now down to just 6 runners as Liam crossed the line to go from P14 to P1 in this Grand Prix. It's been a great race from him, and after Indigo leading for so many laps, Liam is able to take the win here at Singapore at round 12. That was an amazing race from Liam to move all the way from the back to the front. So is going to be able to get onto the podium with P2 in this Grand Prix for Williams. West Ice managing the final spot on the podium with P3. JPE, who's had, if I can say, a terrible race, is able to finish P4 due to there only being 6 finishers. And Clark also having a terrible race, breaking his wing 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, finishes top 5. And Joshua, it was looking so good for most of the race, is sadly finishing P6 and only coming away with 8 championship points. But that is going to be the Singapore Grand Prix here at F9, and an absolutely thrilling one at that. And I really do hope you enjoyed that one. Liam obviously getting driver of the day, starting from the back and winning the Grand Prix. And that has got to be one of the drives of the season. And I'm sure he'll be really happy with that. The Irishman winning the Singapore Grand Prix. But that is going to be it for round 12 here in F9 in PSGL. And I really do hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. A truly thrilling race. And I hope to see you all next week for round 13 at the very same time, Mondays at 8 o'clock here for F9. And after watching a race like that, you'd be mad not to come back for more. But I hope to see you all next week, and goodbye until then.